Okay, I am here today with Quan Lee and Randy Mcrally, both partners at Mcrally. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lisa.
Really, really excited to hear what you've got to say. So let's start off with just a general, tell us what Mcrally is. What do you guys do?
You're better.
So Mcrally started in 2015. And what we are is we're a virtual accounting firm, and we focus on bringing small businesses into the cloud, bringing their accounting and accounting function into the cloud.
Nice.
And pairing that up with automation tools. So what that means for them is they can access their information from anywhere and streamline some of their accounting processes, and be able to collaborate with their team members and also their accountants all on the same platform.
Fantastic.
So we package all that up with your typical accounting services, like your bookkeeping, year-end financial statements, and tax returns, and we offer it at a fixed monthly fee.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'd love to hear from both of you. How did you get started in this industry, and how did you kind of come together? What's the story there?
Well, Quan and I met over 10 years ago, actually, when we were articling to get our chartered accountants designations at Deloitte, actually.
Okay.
So we met there. We worked together there for 3 years. I left the firm and went into the oil and gas industry for a number of years. And Quan actually stayed at Deloitte and moved into U.S. tax. So after a number of years of doing that, we had talked about starting businesses for years and years. And it was always, whatever random idea we had of the week. Like I think at one point we wanted to open a food truck, and Quan wasn't there like a stuffed bun restaurant we wanted to do at some point. And then we sat down one day and we kind of just said, we have these designations and this skill set that we're using professionally on a day-to-day basis. Isn't that the most logical way to go out on our own? And realize that not only was that a good way to start a business, it was also a great way to expand our careers and challenge ourselves and really find that kind of satisfaction we were looking for in our roles.
That makes sense. And I know, Quan, in discussions when we first met, I learned a lot about your really unique skill set with U.S. tax. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, back in 2010, I was looking for a slight career change within the same organization, of course. And at the time, the only available role was one in the U.S. tax group. The tax department's probably close to 100 people at Deloitte, but the tax group in the U.S. tax group was kind of up and coming, and that was the only opportunity really that was there for me. And I sat down with a partner, and he talked about how it's the most complicated tax system in the world, and if you can understand U.S. taxes, then you can really understand all the other tax systems in the world. And gave me the spiel and convinced me to go on to join them, and I did. And when I did that, there were a whole host of other opportunities from a learning perspective. So I ended up doing a master's degree as well in U.S. tax, and got to work with some really interesting clients that are like multinationals and private equity firms, and doing really cool stuff like cross-border transactions. And eventually that kind of led me to the point where I was kind of managing my own files and taking everything from start to finish, and being able to handle all the issues on my own. And I was basically running a business within the business.
Right.
And so it was at the point where I was just looking for another challenge. I think going off on my own was the answer that kind of fulfilled that desire.
That makes sense. Very cool. It sounds like you both bring a very diverse background to your practice, which is kind of cool. And I'm sure that you hear it all the time, that accounting is boring. So how are you guys making it really interesting? Because it sounds like some of the things you're doing with the cloud is actually very innovative.
Yeah, I mean, accounting is boring. At least what we think of it on the surface. It's one of those things that is the data entry, and how you get to good accounting is relatively boring. And not to disparage, people who love to do that on a day-to-day basis. There are days where I like to just sit down and plug in a bunch of transactions and just clear my head. It's almost meditative in a sense, but it's not something that's going to kind of get your blood flowing, and that leads people to leave it all the time and let it drag out. And I'm guilty of that exact thing. I always tell the story of the fact that I had 9 months worth of expense reports to do for myself in our first year of the business because I just could not bear to sit down and do all that paperwork. And so what we do to make it a little bit, not necessarily more interesting, but more efficient, is bring the tools. So going back to that 9 months of expense reports, we got a tool called the Receipt Bank, which we offer to all our clients and we use internally. And I sat down expecting a long, drawn-out process, and I was through that, 8-inch high stack of paperwork in 15 minutes. Done. And then I let the software deal with it. So then I can actually go back and do the interesting things, which is taking the financial statements and really what accounting from a financial reporting standpoint, so we'll leave tax aside, is using the financials and learning how to read that language that is there to interpret what's happening with a business and try to get a feel for where a business is going in the future. And that's what's exciting to me is to look at that trend analysis, see where things are going and get that almost psychic look in a sense, or as I use it, the radar on a ship. That's what accounting is, and it can help you steer it better. So that's what makes it more interesting. And then as Quan mentioned, you get into the tax stuff and it's so complicated and sometimes can get so challenging. And for people like us who like a challenge and like to get our brains working overtime, that piece is always interesting and always changing.
That makes sense. And it sounds to me, though, although accounting can be kind of boring, what gets exciting is really the outcome of understanding your numbers, having it done efficiently. And then that's where the real value comes in for your customer.
That's exactly right. Like accounting it's often perceived, especially in the small business world, as that nuisance at year end to get your financials done, get your taxes done, and make sure you pay CRA so nobody's on your back. The reality is it's mission critical for running a business. We all know, marketing is obviously critical. HR is very important. Training is really important. Sales work is important. And accounting is sometimes left by the wayside because it is that boring piece, but it really is that critical piece that allows you to understand what's happening with your business. Simply looking at your cash balance just really isn't enough in today's world.
Right. That makes sense. So Quan, I'll direct this question at you. Outside of the tech, and I'm sure that's kind of building into the customer experience, and I've been reading between the lines here a little bit, it sounds like that's really what makes you guys different from other accounting firms, is that you are very virtually based.
Yeah, I would say so. I think in today's society where you have a lot of freelancers and people just working from wherever, whenever, being able to access your accountant just as easily is very important, and not everyone can meet up in person all the time. So we do have a lot of clients who kind of fit into that box, and what we offer is unique and really fitting with how they run their own businesses. And we run our business the same way. Like we have a team in Calgary. We meet up for social events, but for the most part, we all work from our homes or coffee shops, and we have a staff out in Victoria doing her thing. And it doesn't feel like we're apart at all with the communication tools that we use. We're always interconnected, and it's the same experience that our clients get. Using the same tools.
That's really great, and I think technology has given us such an advantage to be able to do that. Even I find in large offices where people are, in the next cubicle, they're still using, a virtual type of correspondence, whether it be email or, Slack, that kind of thing. And so it really doesn't matter whether you're sitting in the cubicle beside them or whether you're in Victoria and you're in Calgary. It's the benefit of using technology. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I love the most is just having access to the same systems that our clients do. So, gone are kind of the days where, I want to know what my numbers are. Let's call my accountant to get those numbers.
Right.
Sometimes you won't hear back for like a week or 2 weeks as they're trying to throw together the numbers.
Right.
And, with the system, you can get it pretty much whenever you want.
Yeah, you can log in and run the report and see it. And the other piece of that is we practice what we preach. We, like as Quan said, we literally use the same system as we do for our clients. So it's not like we're going out there saying, well, this is what you guys should be using, but internally we're doing something different. It is totally the same.
That makes total sense. And I have to give a bit of a plug for Receipt Bank that you brought up. We put that into our company this year, and it has been it's so cool. I don't have to carry paper around anymore. I just snap a photo and put it in, and away it goes. And it's so handy. And it's also a peace of mind of knowing your receipts are actually being taken care of. And if you get audited, you've got a really good record.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I'd love to dive in a little bit more about your team. You mentioned that there's a gal that's part of your team in Victoria, but as a whole, how would you describe the culture at Mcrally?
That is a good question. We have a number of ways of describing it. We have a team first culture, always. So, Quan and I put the needs of our team ahead of anybody else, because our team needs to be happy and be able to do their jobs well and serve our clients well. Secondly, we've also called it kind of a family environment. We're trying to create a company where people want to be here and stay. So there's opportunities for growth, whether that's, as we've said to every single person who's come on board, if your career goals eventually take you out of the company, that's something we'll support. We'll do everything we can to help you grow your career within our firm, as long as you want to stay. But, if you want to be CFO of an oil and gas company one day, that's not something you can fully get the experience for here. So we'll take you as far as we can and then try to help you find the next role to get you to your ultimate goal. And I think just treating people like a human being that way is a way of establishing a much more trusting and open environment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels drawn between how we're running things. And if you look at how Richard Branson runs his companies, at the end of the day, the one thing he says is you got to take care of your team, and then your team will take care of your customers. And we truly believe that, and we live by that. And I guess there's another quote where someone asked him, what if we train all these good people and then they end up leaving? And he comes back with a rebuttal saying, well, what if we don't train them up and they end up staying? What are the implications of that, right? So
I love it. And so it sounds like one of your major core values is really team first then.
Absolutely. Team first, yeah. And we're trying out different things like a no vacation policy. We're shutting down our office.
Unlimited vacation.
Unlimited vacation policy, we mean.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But kind of the spirit is there.
Yeah.
Love it. That's great.
We're not chaining them to death. But yeah, so we're, as Quan said, on unlimited vacation policy. We're launching a 4-day work week effective in the summer once we're through our busy season as a pilot program. And if that's successful, we will actually try to run that through the year. And then unlike a lot of accounting firms where busy season is this 6 or 7 day a week effort, our goal is to have a team and technology in place that, for us, busy season means 5 days a week. Wow. And that's what tax season is, because we look at the traditional model and it's so heavily reliant on hours from individuals, and that's not a model that's built for long-term retention. We want our good people to stay with us forever. And the cloud really brings a lot of ease into that. So mentioning the staff member out in Victoria, she was moved out there this summer, and in the past that would have meant finding a new recruit, hiring that person, retraining that person to do all the same jobs. That's, covering a lot of our clients. And the odds of having an interruption in client service are pretty high for a small firm.
Right.
Instead, she basically said, hey guys, I need this week off so I can move, and then I'll be back the week after. And we said, okay. And then sure enough, a week after, she logs in on Slack and is like, okay, what's today? What are we doing today? And that was it. So we wouldn't have been able to do that without the technology that we have.
Totally. That makes sense. I'd love to ask, Quan, could you clarify for those who may not know what Slack is? What's Slack?
Slack is a communication tool. So if you think back to maybe ICQ days and how that was used to communicate with people, and it's evolved, and now you have Skype. Slack is just like another alternative with built-in tools. So there's other applications that you can integrate into Slack, and you can share ideas and have different discussion channels where you can pull in different people of your team. You can even bring people outside your organization. And so the tool is very handy, and you can have it on your phone as well. So you're always connected to your team members. And it really clears up your email inbox is what it does.
Fantastic. That's great. And what would you say, if off the cuff, not to put you on the spot, top 3 tech tools that you use in your business? So it sounds like Slack, Receipt Bank, What else?
I'd say practice. There's a software called Practice Ignition.
Okay.
It allows us to streamline, standardize, and get engagement letters out to the client quick. So our onboarding process is very, very streamlined.
Great.
Yeah, I'd say that was a huge time saver. I just remember back at the firm, that process was probably one of the most painful processes.
Yeah.
And took up a lot of time.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And if I am understanding correctly, Xero is the accounting platform that you focus on.
Correct. That's the one that we use that drives. It's kind of the hub of everything that we do. All the other tools that we use talk directly with Xero. And it's the same setup with all of our clients as well.
That makes
The
sense.
idea is, if you think of Xero like the hub of a wheel, you don't want to necessarily run your business in the accounting system, but all these other software that integrate are the spokes to the rim of your wheel. And so you run your business like a car on the tire, on the outside. And so that's where our clients, and that's where we actually live. So Practice Ignition is a great example of something that's on the outside that we live in on a day-to-day basis, but it feeds data directly back into the accounting system. So it's all collected in the same place.
Nice.
That's what we try to set up for everybody.
That makes sense. And I know that there's a bit of a debate that goes on out there between, Xero and QuickBooks. Do either of you care to comment why Xero better?
Yes, I'm willing to step out there and say it. I'm not going to pull any punches. I think Xero is better because it's got much more robust reporting. And as an accountant, it allows me to set up different types of user levels so I can have more access to the system than maybe some of my clients do. And that allows me to have a little bit of ability to get things done quickly because I know where I can kind of manually deal with things, but it keeps things for the client facing side in an area where you're not really going to create a whole bunch of errors or something like that if you're not as well versed in accounting technique or bookkeeping technique. That's one piece, but the reporting piece is phenomenal. Like I had a client just yesterday come out and say, hey, I need to move these accounts around for my balance sheet to see them in a different place. And I said, yeah, that totally makes sense. Xero's report as canned couldn't do it, but I was able to modify the layout of the report and save it as a custom report that now my client can run anytime they want to, and that's their customized balance sheet.
Fantastic.
Which is an awesome feature.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's segue into growth. You guys have grown a lot over the last couple of years since you've started this venture. I'm sure that didn't come without obstacles, though. Is there anything that comes to mind that was something you really had to overcome?
Well, we changed our business model a few times in the first year. We're like any other business. You make decisions and you have to pivot quickly if they don't work. And we have made mistakes in pricing. We've made mistakes in cost analysis. We've done things we don't like in terms of how we set our packages up. We're on our second iteration, soon to probably be, really our third iteration of these fixed packages as we learn more about what the market wants from us. Kwan, do you have any other kind of growth pains?
Yeah, just managing it because the pace of it is just so quick and you're always juggling balls and dropping balls and you're trying to do the best that you can. But sometimes some of that kind of peers through and your client gets a feel of it, and that's not always ideal as well. So it's really important that we establish good relationships with our clients and that they understand kind of what we're going through at the same time so that you can manage the relationship properly and you're not left with the dissatisfied customers.
Yeah, exactly. And our clients are great and they understand that. And at the end of the day, you meet the deadlines and that's what counts. So I think that's where, Kwan and I have a long years of training in that from our big firm experience. So, but yeah, there's, have there been weekends? Have there been evenings? Absolutely. And our team is great and they understand that sometimes you have to jump in and just do that little extra bit. And so that's where, having the right team in place helps as well.
Absolutely. And I think any entrepreneur can say you respect the grind.
Yeah, we always have on the back of our minds that not to work so much in the business, rather just work on the business. But it's been tough in the first few years because we just didn't have the resources where we could just step back completely. We're slowly getting there, but you still put in those hours and
I still bookkeep from time to time. I do because it has to be done, and you want to service the work that you get. as much as you want to, Quan and I need to be out there growing our business, and that means meeting new people and bringing on new clients. We have to service the work we have first and make sure our existing clients are happy, number one.
That makes total sense. Total sense. And it's all about those relationships, like you said. Strong client relationships will always, they will stick with you as you go through tough times and as you grow and figure things out. And so I appreciate that transparency. That's really great, because I think you're not alone in that. All startups have growing pains, and it's just the lessons and learning from them, right?
If you did everything right off the hop, what would you be learning?
Exactly.
That's the way I view it.
Exactly. So what about mentors? I'm sure this might be more of an individual question, but is there anybody that you really, really look up to, that you've learned a lot from, and that you've gotten, out of conversations you've gotten a lot out of, that you could share with us?
I've always had a mentor growing up. So I was part of the Rotary Club Stay in School program, and I was paired up with a mentor since grade 7, grade 6. And I still keep in touch with him today. He's a retired VP of a large bank. I've learned a lot through him. We have, Randy and I are part of peer mentor groups, just informal mentor groups. We have friends who are business coaches that we're always able to tap into, get their ideas from them whenever we want. So there's a whole bunch of resources out there, but mentorship is very important. And for people out there, whether it's for your professional life or your personal life, I do recommend everyone to have a mentor.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Anything you'd like to add there, Randy?
Yeah, everything Quan said. I'm not a part of the Rotary Club, and I've never actually had a formal mentor, but, I've got partners I've worked with back at Deloitte who still give me some great advice, and I always heed that. Individuals, like Quan said, that we work with on a routine basis and meet up with and can throw ideas around. And my dad is actually a CA as well, and so I lean on him quite a bit for business advice and things like that in terms of how he would handle situations. And I always know I'm going to get a level, kind of a level response from him, because he'll tell me if he thinks I'm wrong or if I need to rethink it.
Yeah.
And then finally, this is going to sound cheesy, but Quan's is a mentor of mine. And because I respect the work he does so much, and he knows a lot about areas that I don't know as much about. So if I'm ever not sure what to do, the first person I always ask is Quan.
Just fantastic. And it shows that you guys have a great partnership. That's really great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I lean on Randy quite a bit too, because, he's seen areas of accounting that I've never had any experience in. And oftentimes I'll bring him in on certain client meetings because he can bring that expertise to the table much better than I can.
Mm-hmm. It's also nice having a dispassionate voice, because when you're kind of in the thick of it with a situation, sometimes, we're all human. Even as accountants, we sometimes get emotional about things like taxes. When you're not involved in the situation, it's nice having a partner who can come in and say, well, step back a second, and from my perspective, this is how I see it, and it can really clear the air.
Makes total sense. So what about like personal and business rituals? I love asking this question. Is there anything, and we'll start with you, Quan, is there anything that you do on like a daily, weekly basis that helps you, move the needle forward for the business or for you personally?
A couple of things. To get my day started, I always, either I shower and I get dressed as if I'm going to work, even though I work from home.
Okay. It
just puts me in the right mindset. I don't typically follow a set routine. I like to switch things up. So I could spend two weeks working from home, and then a random week working just outside of coffee shops. So I like to vary my schedule a bit. But what I do have in my calendar for every Friday is just a bit of time for myself to do some reading and just reflect and look at the business strategy and the higher level stuff to make sure that we're still on the right track from a professional standpoint, and then for myself from a personal standpoint, that I'm still going where I want to go personally.
Fantastic. And how about you, Randy? Anything that you could share with us?
Yeah, I'm almost the total opposite of Quan. I like routine in my work days. I find it helps me be productive. So I wake up in the morning and I help get my son off to daycare. And then I will always meditate every morning. as much time as I can. And then I get to work. I start working on, usually what I do is I assign myself, 3 things the night before. And so I open those things up. That's going to be what I'm going to do that day. And I try to limit the multitasking because I don't find it very productive. And in the last couple of months, I've been really good about actually booking fitness time into my schedule. So I'll book a workout in my calendar every day and then go do that. And usually I don't do the shower and get dressed until after the workout at that point. So I'm a pajamas work from home kind of guy.
Nothing wrong with that. That's cool though, and I love to hear that you meditate. I was at a conference earlier this year, and the CEO from Stella & Dot spoke, and she talked a lot about meditation and how it's still kind of, there's a little bit of stigma there, and she says give it 5 years and meditation is going to be the thing where if you're not doing it, you're silly that you're not doing it, kind of like those who still drink Coke and eat McDonald's. They're doing some harm to their body. And I'm like, that's a really interesting point. So it'll be great to see when that stigma kind of lifts, because I agree. I think that meditation is so important. So that's great.
So do I. It's crucial for me.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't resonate with everybody. It certainly didn't with me the first time I tried it.
It takes a long time, I find. Yeah. You really have to get into the habit of it to start to see the real benefits. But
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So what about books? Top 5 business books. Anything you'd throw out there that's your favorite or that you learned a ton from?
Well, I want to say Traction by Gino Wickman. We built our business plan around his model, the EOS model.
Great.
So it's a very nice plan because it's 2 pages, it's to the point, and it focuses on the important stuff, the things that if you don't do anything else right, but you get these things done, then you're going to still be successful. So it's really easy to follow. It was a good, easy read. Another one I read recently was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I want to read that so bad.
Yeah, I want to read that one.
Yeah, it was an easy read as well, and I took 2 main things away from it. The first one was just talking about values and having good values versus not good values, and how that's tied to things that are kind of in your control and things that are not within your control, and how that impacts your life. So that was a good thing to kind of reassure me that the things that I was thinking about and what I value are good. And it was interesting because I asked my wife what her values were, and she listed 3 off the top of her head, and they were the same as mine. So it really revealed why we've been together for so long and in a good relationship. So
that's fantastic. Very, very cool. Anything that you'd reference, Randy, as a favorite business book?
Yeah, this is going to be funny, but the Tax Act.
Okay.
I have to say that because I don't actually read business books.
Okay.
To any great degree. I read a lot of content off LinkedIn, and I do a lot of current events reading. So
awesome.
That's my kind of source for professional development from that standpoint, when I'm not truly in professional development, where I am reading the Tax Act, which is something I have to do on a routine basis. And for me, reading more is about pleasure. So I'm all about the beach reads and something that can take my mind off of work and taxes and accounting and these types of things. That's
great. Well, we all have our different interests, right? So I have to admit, I couldn't imagine reading the Tax Act, but that's awesome.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible. Oh, that's funny.
But a necessary evil when you work in our field.
That's right. So my last question for you guys is, where is Mcrally going in the future? Anything big and exciting that you can share? Or just future plans. What's coming up in 2018?
We're going everywhere.
All right.
Yeah. No, we actually already have clients from BC to Nova Scotia, and we want to continue to expand that footprint. We just signed our first client in Saskatchewan. So that's coming along. And then we got some stuff up our sleeves, I think, otherwise.
Really great. Super. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to speak with me. I really, really enjoyed hearing more about what you do.
Thanks, Lisa.
You bet.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having us. Had fun.
I'm glad.